There are moments in life when you meet people who react to you in ways that seem entirely out of proportion to who you are. You show kindness and they return coldness. You offer understanding and they respond with irritation. You express love and they pull away as if threatened. You begin to wonder why your sincerity feels like a disturbance in someone else's world. But the truth lies not in what you did, but in what your presence reflected. You became a mirror, and what they saw in that mirror was not just you, but the parts of themselves they have long refused to see. Every human being carries within them two realities, the face they show to the world and the one they hide from it. This hidden side is composed of everything they've been taught to suppress. Anger, jealousy, fear, insecurity, pain, longing, and unhealed wounds from the past. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape that hidden self, believing it to be their enemy. They bury it beneath achievements, distractions, and personas carefully constructed to appear strong or in control. But the hidden self doesn't disappear simply because it's ignored. It waits silently for something or someone to bring it into awareness. And when you came along, you unknowingly became that trigger. Your light, your empathy, your openness. These qualities didn't just inspire admiration, they evoked discomfort. Because your authenticity called forth what was inauthentic in them. Your emotional honesty revealed their emotional avoidance. Your ability to love without manipulation reminded them of all the times they could not. Without saying a word, you reminded them of who they are and who they pretend to be. And for the ego, this is unbearable. The ego thrives on illusion, the illusion of being right, being superior, being in control. But the presence of someone who embodies truth dissolves those illusions like sunlight breaking through fog. So they lash out, not because they hate you, but because they can't bear to see themselves through you. They may criticize, distance, mock, or misinterpret your intentions, all as a defense mechanism to protect the fragile image they've built. To face the truth in your reflection would mean to confront the pain they've avoided for years. The childhood wounds, the self-betrayal, the parts of themselves that never felt worthy of love. And so they reject you, because rejecting you feels safer than accepting what you mirror back. This is why many deeply empathetic or spiritually aware individuals experience rejection and misunderstanding. The more light you carry, the more you reveal the shadows in others. It's not that your light creates their darkness. It only exposes what was already there. Your compassion doesn't make people insecure. It simply highlights the parts of them that haven't yet learned compassion for themselves. Your forgiveness doesn't make people feel small. It reveals how trapped they still are in resentment. What they see in you are their own unhealed places reflected with clarity. But this mirror effect works both ways. When someone mistreats you, they also become a mirror for own inner world. They may reflect your unhealed need to be accepted, your fear of being unseen, your tendency to overgive to earn love. Every connection, no matter how painful, becomes a mirror reflecting something that requires awareness. The outer world, in this way, becomes a living classroom of mirrors where each soul unconsciously teaches the other who they truly are beneath the masks. The pain you feel when you are misunderstood or mistreated is, in essence, the pain of being seen too clearly, not by them, but by life itself. Life uses these moments to awaken you to the truth that your worth is not determined by how others perceive you. The mirror they hold up may distort your image, but it cannot alter your essence. The reflection may shift, but the light that casts it remains constant. When you understand this, something powerful happens within you. You stop taking their reactions personally. You stop chasing validation from mirrors that are cracked by their own self-denial. You begin to see that love, truth, and authenticity will always challenge the illusions of those who fear them. You realize that the hostility or coldness you receive is not a sign that you are unworthy, but evidence that your presence has stirred something real. To live consciously is to accept that not everyone can face their reflection. Some will turn away from your mirror with resistance, while others will embrace it with gratitude. But the mirror itself remains pure, unchanged, simply reflecting what is. And in this reflection lies a sacred task to keep being what you are, without apology, without shrinking, without trying to dim the clarity of your reflection for the comfort of others. For the mirror of the unseen self does not exist to please, it exists to reveal. We are taught to believe that love is the ultimate balm, a soothing force that heals wounds, dissolves fear, and brings people closer to their true selves. But for many, love does not feel like comfort. It feels like exposure. It feels like standing under a light too bright to bear. When real love appears, love that sees, accepts, and refuses to manipulate, it doesn't always awaken gratitude. Sometimes it awakens resistance, panic, even hostility, because for those who have lived behind emotional walls, true love doesn't feel safe. It feels like a threat to the structures that once kept them alive. Love, in its purest form, carries an energy that cannot coexist with illusion. It does not simply say, "I care for you." It says, "I see you." And being seen is not something everyone is ready for. When someone has spent years hiding behind personas, performance, or guardedness, being fully seen can feel unbearable. Love gently touches the wounds they've worked so hard to bury. It brings to the surface the insecurities they have never spoken of, the self, doubt they've camouflaged with control, and the loneliness they've numbed with distractions. And because these wounds are raw, they interpret love not as a blessing, but as a trigger. To the wounded psyche, love feels invasive. It is not the love itself that hurts, but what the love reveals. When you tell someone, "You deserve to be loved," it forces them to confront the part of themselves that whispers, "No, I don't." When you offer unconditional acceptance, you reflect back the ways they have rejected themselves. When you give without expecting anything in return, you expose how transactional their understanding of love has always been. In this way, love becomes an awakening, and awakening, for those who are still asleep, feels like violence. Many people are more comfortable in conflict than in connection. They find safety in familiar pain, in predictable patterns of rejection or withdrawal. Genuine intimacy, emotional, spiritual, or physical, demands vulnerability. It requires the dismantling of defenses that were built over years of hurt. So when real love approaches, they flinch. They misinterpret gentleness as weakness, depth as danger, and closeness as loss of control. Their subconscious mind whispers that letting love in means losing themselves. So they push it away, often through subtle sabotage, sarcasm, indifference, criticism, or distance. These are not conscious rejections of love, but unconscious acts of self-protection. It is difficult to accept love when you have been taught to equate it with pain. those who have experienced conditional love, love that had to be earned, proven, or fought for, have learned to associate closeness with anxiety. To them, love is not a safe space, it is a test they are destined to fail. When someone offers them authentic love, it feels unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar feels unsafe. The heart may yearn for affection, but the nervous system remembers every heartbreak and betrayal. So the moment love feels too real, the body interprets it as danger. They don't reject you because they don't care. They reject you because their body has mistaken love for pain. This is why some people run from those who love them most. They aren't afraid of you. They are afraid of what you awaken in them. Love invites them to feel deeply, to dismantle their numbness, to surrender control. And surrender to someone who has survived by staying guarded feels like death. So they may create conflict where there is peace, distance where there is intimacy, or anger where there is gentleness. In truth, they are not fighting you. They are fighting the reflection of themselves that your love exposes. Real love has a frequency that dissolves pretense. It strips away the masks and forces authenticity. That process can feel uncomfortable, even unbearable, for those who have never felt safe being authentic. Love holds up a mirror that says, "This is who you are beneath the pain." But to look into that mirror, one must be ready to see not only their light, but also their darkness. For some, this confrontation is too much, too soon. And so, love becomes the trigger that sets the healing process in motion. The irony is that the very love they run from is the love they've always needed. But the human heart often resists what it most deeply desires until it feels safe enough to receive it. Until then, love will continue to expose, to unsettle, to challenge every illusion of unworthiness. It will shake the walls of self-protection, not to destroy, but to reveal what those walls were always hiding. The simple truth that they are already lovable, already enough, already seen. Every human being carries within them a landscape that is both light and dark. The light consists of what we consciously accept and celebrate about ourselves, our talents, our kindness, our integrity, our compassion. The darkness, however, is made up of what we repress, deny, or fear. Our envy, anger, shame, selfishness, weakness, and pain. Most people are not fully aware of this hidden territory. They imagine that by denying the darker aspects of their nature, they have transcended them. But the truth is that what we refuse to face within ourselves never disappears. It seeks expression in disguise. And often, that disguise takes the form of projection. Projection is one of the most subtle, yet powerful forces shaping human relationships. It occurs when the mind unconsciously attributes its own disowned traits to someone else. We see in others what we cannot bear to acknowledge in ourselves. If someone has buried their anger, they may perceive others as hostile. If they suppress their envy, they may interpret others' success as arrogance. If they feel inadequate deep down, they may accuse others of trying to make them feel small. What we deny internally, we recreate externally. The world becomes a screen upon which we cast the unexamined parts of our own psyche. This is why you may find that certain people react to you with unexplainable intensity. You haven't harmed them. You've simply mirrored something inside them that they've long refused to see. Your confidence exposes their insecurity. Your honesty reveals their self-deception. Your emotional openness reflects their emotional numbness. And because these qualities exist within them but have been repressed, they interpret their discomfort as evidence that you are the problem. In reality, they are battling their own reflection. When someone attacks you, criticizes you without cause, or feels inexplicably threatened by your presence, you are witnessing the projection of their inner shadow. The shadow does not want to be seen. It wants to remain hidden, safely tucked away in the unconscious. But your existence, your authenticity, or your light may call it forth. It is not you they are rejecting, but the parts of themselves that your presence forces into awareness. The anger directed at you is, in truth, anger toward themselves, displaced and redirected because facing it directly feels unbearable. The shadow is not inherently evil, it is simply an integrated. It contains not only our pain, but also our potential. Within the shadow lie the parts of the self that were exiled long ago. The spontaneous child who was told to behave, the passionate spirit who was shamed for wanting too much, the intuitive voice that was silenced in favor of logic. To see and accept the shadow is to reclaim wholeness. But this process requires courage because it means confronting all that one has rejected in the name of being good. Many people would rather live in self-deception than face the chaos of their own depth. So instead of integrating the shadow, they externalize it. They make others responsible for what is unresolved within themselves. You become the scapegoat for their inner war. They call you controlling when, in truth, they fear losing control. They label you selfish when they are suppressing their own desires. They accuse you of arrogance when they secretly long to feel confident. Through projection, they preserve their self-image while avoiding self-confrontation. But projection never brings peace, it only prolongs suffering. The energy used to deny the shadow drains vitality, and the relationships built on projection are inevitably distorted. When you understand projection, you begin to see human behavior with greater clarity. You stop internalizing every judgment or misunderstanding. You realize that most of what people say about you reveals more about them than it does about you. Their accusations, their envy, their hostility, these are windows into their own inner conflicts. And just as others project onto you, you too project onto them. Awareness of this truth brings humility. You start to notice when your irritation toward someone might be reflecting something unresolved within yourself. The process of shadow integration begins with self-honesty. It is the willingness to ask, what part of me does this reaction belong to? It is recognizing that darkness is not the opposite of light, but its complement. The more we deny our own shadow, the more power it gains over us. But when we face it consciously, its energy becomes available for growth and creativity. By integrating the shadow, we cease to project it outward, and our relationships become cleaner, freer, more real. When you become aware of projections, you stop being a victim of others' unconsciousness. You begin to see the patterns, the invisible dance of mirrors between human beings. You no longer take hostility personally, nor do you chase validation from those trapped in their own denial. You learn to stand calmly in your truth, knowing that the shadows being thrown in your direction are not yours to carry. There is a unique kind of H that comes not from rejection, but from misinterpretation, from being seen through the distorted lens of another person's fears, wounds, or projections. It is the pain of realizing that no matter how pure your intentions are, someone has decided to see you as the opposite. You offer sincerity, and it's mistaken for manipulation. You show care, and it's read as neediness. You express boundaries, and it's called selfishness. You reveal vulnerability, and it's perceived as weakness. The pain of being misread is not just about not being understood, it's about being transformed in someone else's mind into a character that has nothing to do with who you truly are. This experience can feel like being trapped behind a glass wall. You can see the other person clearly, but they can't see you. They're reacting to an illusion they've constructed, and no matter what you say, the illusion persists. You try to explain, you try to clarify, but your truth passes through filters shaped by their past experiences, insecurities, and assumptions. What they hear is not your voice, but the echo of their own unresolved stories. You become a mirror reflecting not your reality, but theirs. People don't see others as they are, they see them as they are. Every interaction is filtered through one's inner world. When someone has been betrayed before, trust looks suspicious. When they have been controlled, kindness feels manipulative. When they have been ignored, attention feels overwhelming. Your words, no matter how genuine, get rewritten by the script of their pain. You may find yourself constantly explaining your intentions, apologizing for how you were perceived, trying to prove your purity to those determined to misunderstand it. But the truth is, you cannot make someone see you accurately if they are committed to seeing through their wound. This kind of pain cuts deeply because it strikes at the heart of authenticity. When you live with openness and integrity, you expect that truth will be recognized. You believe that good intentions will be felt, that love will be understood. That clarity will create connection. But when the opposite happens, when your truth is twisted into something unrecognizable, it shakes your faith, not only in others, but in yourself. You start to question your own reality. You wonder if maybe you were too expressive, too intense, too trusting. You begin to shrink, not because you've done anything wrong, but because the weight of being misread makes you doubt your right to be seen as you are. This pain often finds its roots in empathy. The more empathetic you are, the more it hurts to be misunderstood. You can feel the distance that misunderstanding creates. You sense the walls going up, the emotional withdrawal, the subtle coldness that replaces connection. You want to fix it, to reach across the distance and make them see. But empathy without boundaries turns into self-erasure. In trying to be understood, you can lose yourself. Being misread is also a mirror of human limitation. Most people do not listen to understand. They listen to protect themselves. They hear through defense mechanisms built over years of conditioning. They see through the lenses of their fears. When someone misreads you, they are often revealing the stories they tell themselves to survive. They may project control onto you because they fear being powerless. They may project insincerity because they struggle to trust their own motives. The misunderstanding, painful as it is not a reflection of your failure to communicate, but of their inability to receive clarity. There is also a kind of loneliness in being misread. It isolates you in plain sight. You may be surrounded by people, yet feel invisible, because no one seems to recognize your true nature. This loneliness does not come from the absence of others, but from the absence of resonance. It's the silence that follows when your truth falls on ears that cannot hear it. It's the frustration of being explained instead of experienced, analyzed instead of understood. And the more you try to correct the misreading, the more distorted it becomes, because those who need to misinterpret you are often using misunderstanding as a form of control. When you are misread, you learn to sit in the discomfort of not being seen. You begin to understand that being true to yourself will sometimes mean being misunderstood by others. The pain remains, but it also becomes a teacher. It shows you where others are not ready to meet you, where communication has reached its limits, where your only power is to remain centered in your own clarity. The pain of being misread is not a punishment. It is a reminder of how few people truly see without the filters of fear. It is the quiet struggle of those who refuse to stop being genuine, even when the world insists on misinterpreting their sincerity. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences the human heart can endure. It strikes at the very foundation of belonging, leaving behind questions that echo long after the moment has passed. Why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? Why did they leave when I gave them everything? The pain of rejection can feel like proof of unworthiness, as if the universe itself has turned away. But beneath the emotional storm lies something far more profound. Rejection as a form of redirection, as an invitation to see yourself not through the eyes that left you, but through the truth that remains when all illusions fall away. Rejection, when stripped of its emotional weight, is not punishment, it is revelation. It shows you what was never aligned, what was never truly meant to stay. The universe has a way of removing people, opportunities, and situations that would keep you from your deeper growth. But because the human mind equates loss with failure, we cling to what is familiar even when it has already begun to decay. Rejection intervenes when your soul is ready for expansion, but your ego still clings to comfort. It tears away what is false so that you can stand in what is real. Every time someone walks away from you, something within you is being asked to awaken. Their departure becomes a mirror reflecting your own attachment, your own need for validation, your own tendency to place your worth in the hands of another. The pain does not come from their absence, it comes from the meaning you attach to that absence. Rejection exposes how deeply you've tied your sense of self to being accepted. When the source of that acceptance disappears, what remains is an open space, a sacred emptiness that invites you to find love from within rather than from without. The higher purpose of rejection is self-realignment. It dismantles illusions you didn't know you were living under. It shows you who you were pretending to be to earn love, who you became to stay needed, who you tried to become so you wouldn't be left. In this way, rejection is a form of spiritual cleansing. It removes every mask that was never truly yours. What you lose in relationships or recognition, you gain in authenticity. You learn that love rooted in fear of abandonment isn't love. It's dependency disguised as devotion. Sometimes rejection arrives not because you are unworthy, but because your energy no longer matches the frequency of where you once belonged. As you evolve, certain people and environments can no longer meet you where you are going. The version of you that once fit into their world has outgrown it. The rejection you experience from them is often your soul's confirmation that you are no longer meant to shrink to fit. It is the universe whispering that belonging should never require the betrayal of your own truth. There is also a sacred intelligence in the timing of rejection. When doors close, they often do so to protect you from paths that would have led you away from your purpose. The relationship that ended may have been distraction. The job that let you go may have confined your potential. The friend who distanced themselves may have made space for new forms of connection that align with your growth. You may not see it immediately because pain clouds perception, but with time, rejection reveals itself as redirection, a hidden form of grace disguised as loss. Rejection also strips away the illusion of control. It reminds you that you cannot make someone stay, you cannot force recognition. You cannot control how others see your worth. What you can control is how you respond. Whether you collapse into bitterness or rise into deeper self-awareness. The ego wants to win acceptance, the soul wants to understand truth, and every rejection moves you closer to the soul's agenda by removing what the ego clings to. At its core, rejection teaches you the difference between attachment and alignment. Attachment says, I need this person, this situation, this outcome to feel complete. Alignment says, if it's truly meant for me, it will remain effortlessly. When you begin to live from alignment, rejection loses its sting. You start to see it not as evidence of failure, but as a sacred boundary drawn by life itself, a way of saying, not this, there's more for you. The higher purpose of rejection is freedom. Freedom from illusions, from dependency, from the exhausting effort of trying to earn what should flow naturally. It clears the path towards self, trust, teaching you that your value doesn't diminish when someone fails to see it. Rejection pushes you inward, where you discover that the love you were seeking was never outside of you. It was always the quiet, unwavering presence that remained even after everything else was gone.